just want to say thank you, Marsh, for that beautiful opening to our time together today. And I know how much your dad loved you singing that, so thank you for that. And I also want to thank Debbie for inviting me to be here today. Debbie and I have known each other for quite a number of years. We do a lot together for the funeral homes around here, and I'm so grateful that you asked. And I also want to just give a shout out for the people of First Parish, as well as for Reverend Diane and Evan and the deacons that are here today, for not just opening the doors for us, but opening their hearts to us. I really, really appreciate that. You know, it has been an honor as well to speak to so many family members over the last few days and weeks. I had this great opportunity to speak with Joanne and with Marsh as well as with Tina, and I learned so much about who Jim has been. And then I met with the fabulous four sisters. And man, did I hear stories then. As I've said, many of those stories can't be told here in public, but I invite you to come afterwards to the gathering up at the restaurant, which starts at 4, because that's where all those stories can be told too. Although I know, Pam, that you're going to speak, so I hope you'll share, well, at least those ones that are okay to share in public. But I heard so much about who Jim has been and what mattered to him and what made his heart sing. And so I couldn't help think of these words, knowing that your hearts are really broken, even now, after all of these weeks. I know that they are. I love these words that Cahill Gibran wrote about 100 years ago. And he said, when you're sorrowful, look again in your hearts, because there you're going to see that the one for whom you weep has been your delight. And as I listen to all of you, it is so clear to me that Jim has been your delight. So I'm just so grateful that all of you have been able to be here with us today, because I heard all these stories about this man who was dedicated to his family and dedicated to work, but who was also kind and generous and welcome and really, really fun. So I know that there's going to be a lot of humor today, because funny and not have you enjoy that humor. So I know that that's going to happen. And I also, every time we gather for a service like this, I say we're not here just because somebody has died, but because a life has been lived. And our work is to remember who he's been and remember how he's touched all of your lives and remember what he taught every single one of you on his journey, and everybody teaches us something. And I really do believe that the way we remember somebody, the way that we keep them alive, not just in our head but in our hearts, is by telling them the stories, all of those stories. And so we're going to hear many of those stories, I hope, today. Somebody once said that when our hearts are cracked wide open, and that's what grief does to us, right? It cracks our heart wide open. The best thing that we can do is to open our heart just a little bit wider and let that person crawl in and find a home there, stories and all. And so we're going to hear some of those stories again today. And this is intentionally not a religious service. I know that we come from different faith traditions and maybe no faith traditions, and I want to honor that. But I also want to make sure that I honor those people who do have some kind of a faith tradition. So I am going to begin and gather us together just with a prayer. But before I do that, and I do this, Deb, you know this, at every service I do it on Sunday mornings, at services like this, I really want all of you, every single one of you, to be present to what we're doing today. So what I want all of you to do, and I'm going to watch your shoulders go up, I want every one of you just to take a deep breath and just hold it. And now let it out really, really slowly. And as you let it out, get rid of all of your to-do lists, your honey to-do lists, anything that's going to get in the way of really being here today. And now I ask that we might be in a spirit of prayer, and I offer these words. Holy One, on this warm winter day, the world around us pulses with your love and your presence and your creativity. Everywhere we look, we see your handiwork, from the furthest flung galaxies to the smallest particles of life, right here in this place. We're absolutely in awe of the beautiful beauty and the remarkable diversity around us. And we're so often humbled by those who walk this journey with us. And so today we've gathered and our hearts are heavy because one who's been admired and loved dearly no longer walks beside us. And in spite of the months that have passed since Jim breathed his last, our hearts are still breaking. Our grief is still real, and it's raw, and sometimes it's totally overwhelming. We know in our heads that life on this earthly journey is fleeting, but in our hearts we want it to be different. We don't want to say goodbye to one whom we've loved. One who's been our husband and brother and father and grandfather and cousin and mentor and colleague and loyal friend and so much more. And so as we gather as a community of friends and relatives and listen to what others have to say about who he's been, may each of us remember what he means to us and how he gave the very best of himself, that the world might be a better, kinder, safer world, and that each one of us might live our very best life possible. We pray with gratitude for all that's been and hope for all the days that are yet to come. Amen. So I like to always try to find a reading that speaks in some way about who someone has been. And this is a beautiful reading, and it was written by somebody whose name is Rupi Kaur, and she's a Canadian, and she's both a poet and an artist. And the title of this is just, more importantly, love. Listen to these words, because I think that they speak volumes about who Jim has been, however you knew him. She writes this. She says, and most importantly, love, like it's the only thing you know how. At the end of the day, all this means is nothing. This page, where you're sitting, your degree, your job, money, nothing even matters except love and human connection. Who you loved and how deeply you loved them. How you touched the people around you and how much you gave them. As I listened to all of those stories, those are the words that kept coming back to me. And I really like those words because when Carr speaks about love, she isn't speaking about romantic love. She's not sitting about Hallmark card kind of love, or let's sit around the campfire and sing Kumbaya kind of love. That's not the kind of love she's speaking about. She's speaking about what the Greeks call agape, and agape is the very highest form of love there is. Agape is the kind of love where we give the very best of ourselves for the sake of others without demanding or even expecting anything in return. It is just absolutely freely given. And it's the kind of love where we want to see others thrive, and so we work to make sure that that happens. We want them to thrive, not just exist. And I really believe that that's the kind of love that Jim, whoever you called him, whatever your relationship has been with him, that's the kind of love that was at the very center of who he's been. And I think as we talked, as I listened to you, I think that it's exactly what he learned from his own parents, from your parents growing up. If I take you seriously, that's exactly what I heard. And one of you, and I don't remember because it gets a little fuzzy here which one said what, but one of you said that we had a great house. It was a great house to grow up in. There was a lot of laughter, there was always a lot going on, and there was always a lot of love. Isn't that a great statement? And that sort of sums up in many ways who he's been. To have that kind of love at the very center of who you are, and then to pass that on to others. And I think that not only did he learn that when he was growing up, I think that he also learned a lot from the era in which he grew up, because when you stop and think about it, he grew up in the shadow of both the Depression and World War II, right? And that was a very difficult time. And what so many people learned in that which we call the greatest generation is that there's going to be highs and lows and ups and downs in our life. Life doesn't just go forward all the time. Sometimes there's bumps in the road. Here in Maine, we have potholes and construction all year long. You know, sometimes we go backwards, sometimes we bump into others. Life is not linear. And so you also, when you grew up in that era, you learned that you needed to be resilient. And I also think that you learned that laughter and humor was really an important part of what your life could be. And I think that those things, learning about agape love and learning about how to be resilient and the importance of humor, I think those are the things that really shaped him into who he became. And so as I was listening to all of those stories, that's what I could imagine about who he was. And as I was listening to the Fabulous Four, you know, there was so much laughter. There was so much laughter when we were together. And again, I can't tell all those stories here, but that laughter and that love was so real. And I heard about this guy, this brother, who was a rascal growing up. I mean, that's a nice word to use. He was a rascal. Listening to all those stories. And I hope you're going to share a lot of those stories, because those stories are precious. And one of the things, one of you again started by saying, well, he was just so darn cute when he was a baby. He was chubby, and he had these blue eyes, and then he was so handsome when he was a little boy growing up. And so, how could you not love him? And you said, and so he was everybody's favorite. He was especially Mom's favorite. Especially Mom's. And then you started telling the stories about him and the things that he had done, and said, yeah, he never got in any trouble at all. Matter of fact, we were the ones that would get in trouble if we complained about him. And I heard just those stories, and I know you're going to tell some, so I don't want to share what you're going to share, but I heard about, you know, how he let Cindy's parakeet escape from the house because he left the door wide open. And I heard about setting a fire in the backwoods with his friends. There were so many things that I heard about him. And I'm thinking, well, that boy should have gotten in a little trouble. but he never did. He just didn't. And those stories they were priceless. So Pam, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. But then as I talked to his kids, I learned so much more, and I learned that he was very dedicated to his work, and so you guys were always moving, but that you talked about things like humor and how that was the very very important part of his life. And you talked about how charismatic he was and how he really nurtured his friendships with other people. You talked about who he was, and it was the humor that really got to me, because once again, you talked about how that's often how he connected with people, wasn't it? Was through his humor. He just knew the importance of doing that. And again, I don't want to give everything away that you're going to say, but you talked about how he loved, and I came out of all of our conversations with these three things. He loved golf, and he loved entertaining, and he loved work. And if he could do all those three things together, man, that was perfect for him. It was absolutely perfect. So this is the person that we have come to celebrate today. And I'm not going to say any more, because there are so many stories that are going to be told, and I think that there are 7 people that are going to speak, so I'm going to ask you to come up in just a second, Jim, Marsh. And well, you just remind me so much of what you told me your dad was about, and I'm going, okay, well, that's all right too. And what I want to make sure is that you're really listening to these stories, because these stories are important. And so, as the person, and I think that the list is there in your bulletin, so just follow the person up who's in front of you. And we did add one more, just so that you know, and Cousin Elliot is going to be the last speaker. Please listen to what these people have to say, because you are going to go away from here, my friends, feeling so much better about the world in general.
That sounds like a character from Vacation.
I may cry, but I've discovered that I recover quickly, so don't panic. My dad was the loudest person in the room. I am loud. He was louder. If there was an awkward silence, he treated it like a personal emergency, and he filled it immediately. Quite often by roasting someone, sometimes by roasting everyone. No one was safe except maybe his mother. Everyone else was fair game. But it was comfort. His voice filling a room meant you were not alone. And meant the gathering had officially started. I'm going to talk about my life today. No eye rolling, Scott Lewis. But only because so much of who I am exists because of how my dad showed up for it. What's interesting is that my earliest memories of my dad are a little hazy. For about 0 to 10, he was often on the road, a typical traveling salesman. That's just how it was. He worked, he provided, he was not around so much. What I have instead are flashes. Being in the backseat of an old Buick on a road trip and suddenly choking to death on a gobstopper. Real true panic, my dad pulling over, getting out of the car, and walking down the highway. I don't remember the solution, I think I kind of myself, but I remember his fear. The urgency of a parent who didn't yet have the language or the confidence for this crisis. As I got older, I started to recognize him before I even saw him. I could hear him coming into a room, the jingle of coins in his pocket or the ice in his glass. Before he spoke, before the volume, before the jokes, sound always announced him. And when he was there, you knew it. People did not leave exhausted by him, as they invariably do by me. They left warmer. His presence felt like a hug, which makes sense because he was very literally a hugger, full bear hugs. Especially with his grandchildren. One of my earliest memories of my dad's joy goes back to when I was around 11 or 12. I auditioned for my first big show, The King and I, in tropical, gorgeous Schenectady, New York. The entire family came with me into the audition. It was long and public and very overwhelming. At the end, they announced me as the lead kid in the musical, all very exciting. But the moment that stayed with me did not happen in the room. It happened outside, on the street. My dad, flying high on that success, he hoisted me up in the air and put me on his shoulders. Just like that. And I was accepted. Right then and there. Yes. Come on now. Come on now. When I was 13, I got my next big show, Oliver. My dad was all in. He got involved. He became part of the stage crew. He wanted to be near it. He wanted to be near the thing that lit me up. That became a pattern with him. When something mattered to me, he did not hover at a distance. He leaned in, he learned it, he participated. His pride during those years was unmistakable. And again, he didn't keep it quiet. He said it often to me, to other people, anybody would listen. And as my life in the theater grew, his pride expanded. Broadway touring and singing, all of it brought us closer. It gave us a shared language, a shared excitement. And he didn't stop being proud when it got hard or uncertain or messy, which that career was invariably. He stayed a fan through all of it. Looking back, I don't think I was the easiest son for him to have. I was different early. Theater-loving, emotional, a little bitchy. Curious in ways that maybe didn't always line up with what young boys were supposed to be. Not athletic. Probably confusing for him. My mom saw that. At one point she said to him, "You need to take him out. You need to take him out. Just go, you and him. Spend some time together." So we did. He took me on a Father-Son day. We went to outdoor space with go-karts, batting cages, and a lot of things that were not exactly my natural habitat. I barely remember the activities, but I remember it as being overjoyed that it was just us, that he showed up, and that he tried. And later I realized my mom probably suggested that Father's Day out with me because she caught me wearing one of my sister's nightgowns. I was already signaling that I was not going to be traditional. I think that day he tried in some way to straighten me out. It didn't take. He didn't always understand me, but he didn't disappear. He chose effort. He chose effort over comfort. As I grew up, his humor became one of our shared languages. We both spoke in sarcasm. We roasted each other. He especially enjoyed making fun of my hair, which went through some horrific phases, mullets, what have you. None of those jokes stuck as wounds, not one. They were noise and heat, and then they were gone. And what stayed was the feeling underneath them, that comfort and safety. When I was 16, we took a family trip to Myrtle Beach. One day, being exactly the driver I am, I backed out of a parking lot, straight into a speeding car. No one was hurt, but her car somehow flew into a tar-making machine. My dad had just caught his breath from that. And a few moments later, the phone rang. It was Tina. She had been in an accident too. The other car. At the same time, in a different part of the state. Both are false. Later that day, I flippantly asked my mom where Dad was. Without missing a beat, she said, Well, he's either getting drunk somewhere or he walked into the sea. That was Dad. He eventually came back. Still standing, still ours. And I love that memory because it's not about chaos. It's that even when everything went sideways at once, he absorbed it. He took the hit. He didn't turn it into shame or punishment or fear. He just handled it. Loudly, yes. Loudly. You could hear Dad talking on the phone with his friend Henneberry from down the street. Not exaggerating, down the street, full volume, no awareness of walls or distance or basic physics. At my college graduation, we had a house party at a house I shared with two sons of famous Hollywood parents, which felt at the time important, but probably shouldn't have been. There were candles everywhere. My dad backed right into the one candle that was lit and caught himself on fire. I remember as a young kid bragging to him about something I had accomplished. I don't remember what it was. I said, well, what do I get for it? And he said, you get an attaboy. That was his currency. Approval without much inflation, an attaboy from him meant something. We were alike in ways that sometimes caused friction. To no one's surprise, I was kind of an ass as a teenager. Acerbic, glib. I knew how to poke. Once and only once, he slapped me upside the head. The only time he'd ever lashed out like that. I called the police. They didn't show. What matters to me now is that, not that absurdity of that moment, it was that it was the only time he wasn't cruel, he wasn't unpredictable. Even at his loudest, even at his most reactive, even when he caught himself on fire, he was steady. Another thing that shaped me deeply was watching my parents together. Their marriage was, to my eyes, nearly perfect. And I don't say that lightly, sentimentally. I say it because it was consistent, it was joyful, and it worked. They were the Ozzie and Harriet of their time. Google it, young people. They genuinely liked each other, they joked easily, they roasted each other without cruelty and laughed harder than anyone else in the room. They modeled what it looked like to be happily married, not dramatically happy, not performatively happy, just solid, relaxed. And clearly on the same team. Watching them, you learned that love did not have to be quiet or stiff or serious, to be real. And as the later years went on, they leaned on each other in different ways. Not dramatically, just reflexively. In any moment of crisis, big or small, I will always hear my mom yelling, Jim, Jim, Jim! From another room, from upstairs, from wherever she was. It's immediate. It was automatic, and it still makes me laugh because that was the marriage. When something went wrong, she called for him. When something needed handling, he showed up, not too much scrambling, just trust. As I got older, something shifted between my dad and me. The relationship changed in a way that was thrilling. We moved from parent and child into something closer to peers. We talked constantly about politics, current events, cooking, especially cooking. Somewhere along the line, I became his teacher in that area, which he loved. He respected my opinions. He didn't just tolerate them, he valued them, and he said so. That is something I want to be very clear about today. My dad didn't just show pride, he spoke it. He said it plainly. In the middle of conversations, he didn't ration it or save it for big milestones. I am proud of you. Being seen that way by him meant everything to me. I wasn't just his son, I was a person that he took seriously. This past year, my dad and I talked about regret. Not dramatically, not just honestly the way you do when time feels more finite and conversations get quieter and more real. And I have had a few regrets, and we talked about mine. He listened closely and asked questions, took them seriously. And he told me that he had only one, that he moved us around so much. You're worried about the disruption and what it might cost us, and whether it made things harder than they needed to be. And remember, reassuring me that those moves were not mistakes. They were building blocks. They made us adaptable, curious, resilient, and we all ended up exactly who we were meant to be. I don't know if that erased the regret for him, but you know he hurt me. You know that mattered. What stays with me now is not his regret itself, but the fact that he reflected, that he questioned himself, and he cared enough to revisit the past with humility and love. And that was my dad. Growing up, there were parts of me I worried would make me harder to understand, harder to reach. But what I feared most was not judgment, it was just being misunderstood. Gradually, that fell away. It fell away not with a speech, but through time, through conversation, through laughter, through him fully embracing Jay. Through the excitement and joy Jay and I had Davis and then Kate. Through the way he always asked about Jay, Davis, and Kate every single time we spoke. There was not one small conversation or a large one when they were all three not mentioned. Family to my dad was not narrow. It expanded, it got fuller, it got louder, and he loved it that way. After his leukemia diagnosis and his treatment started, he asked me a favor. It caught me way off guard. He asked me to sing, and I mean sing a bunch of songs, basically do a cabaret. At his neighborhood association's annual holiday party, which he was the president, which surprises no one here. Normally I would have said, absolutely not, I hate that shit, and he knew it. But this time, he played the cancer card. So I said yes without hesitation. He was so excited. He really mattered to him. It was something concrete that he could look forward to during all this chemo and blood work and hospital stays. He died a week before the party. One of the last things he said to me through tears was, I just can't breathe. I won't get to hear you sing. That sentence has stayed with me, not because of guilt, because it says everything about who he was. Even at the end, he wanted to see me doing the thing he loved watching me do. So when I think about my dad, the through line isn't what I did, it's how he showed up. He was always the one clapping the loudest. My dad filled rooms because silence made him comfortable. But what he really gave us was presence, the assurance that people would be included, that love would be obvious. I will miss his voice breaking silences. I will miss bare hugs. I will miss hearing I'm proud of you. Most of all, I will miss being seen by him. The only way a parent who grows alongside you can see you. Loudly, proudly, completely. I didn't get to sing for him that night. But he heard me all my life, becoming who I am. So if you allow me, I just want to give him, if I can, a tiny piece. Who can say where she may hide? Must I travel far and wide till I am beside someone who I can mean something to. I love you, Dad.
Attaboy.
Wrong side.
Hi. Of course, I get the luck of following my brother. He's here. I know he is. Because all of his loved ones are here. And I feel like it should be a roast. It really should be. He would love that. Party, a celebration, all about him. I know he's here. My first memories, early memories of him were pushing me in the swing and singing songs to me and raking huge piles of leaves and tossing me in the middle of them just to hear me laugh and run back to him. As Marsh said so eloquently, he was our safety. I was a proud daddy's girl. I ran to him for everything, my whole life. And he pushed me harder than anyone ever pushed me in a good way when I didn't have the capability to push myself. Yes, the moves were tough at times, but they made me who I am today. And I wouldn't be the same person who could pick up and change states to go to school, go back to nursing school, and to follow the things and the dreams that I wanted, no matter how hard it was. He taught me patience and security and showed me what love looked like. He set the bar very, very high. Probably why I was single for so long. Right, a few things. I just want to talk to you, Daddy, and say thank you. Thank you for how hard you worked and gave us everything, what you provided us with, in every sense of the word. You didn't just put a roof over our heads, you created a home. You didn't just work hard, you worked with a purpose and with pride. And the love for your family was at the center of everything you did, as Marsh said. I always knew, no matter how hard things were, or how I landed, or didn't, that I would be okay, because I could talk to him, and he would steady me. He would ground me. And it was gonna be okay, because you were there, Daddy. You were there. You showed me what it meant to be strong, and dependable, and loyal. And you stood so tall for the people that you loved and cared about, and taught me how to live with integrity. The memories I have are all great ones. And I'm so blessed and lucky to have a father like you. And I know you know how deeply you are loved. And that every little good piece of us that we carry is from you. Your legacy isn't just here in what you built or provided. It's who we are because of you. Every choice I make going forward will be, I'll hear you in the background in my head, guiding me along the way. I will always be a daddy's girl. And I will always be so proud to be your child. Thank you for my life. Thank you for our life. I love you. Okay. So maybe Dad and I didn't actually start out on the wrong foot after all, even though he was late for my birth. I was born in Texas, and apparently he was on a work conference and missed my arrival. My name was supposed to be Susanna, but when he finally got to the hospital, he made up for it by naming me after Mom. If you knew Dad, you know that he had a nickname for many that he loved. And if you were really lucky, or maybe slightly unlucky, you had several. Over the years, I was known as Jody Lee, Squeaky, JoJo, Sweet Pea. Maybe he called you Boo Pop, Noodle, Blondie. Blondie's out there somewhere. Where are you, Blondie? Old Man. Hens, where's Hens? Or even Juicy Lucy. Nicknames were his way of keeping you close without ever needing to say it out loud. Dad didn't love having his picture taken, and we joked that in at least half the photos we have, he's looking anywhere except the camera. It became such a thing that we even talked about making our own family calendar with nothing but photos of him looking upstairs. And that's how we lived too, always present, always engaged, but rarely posing. And one thing he never quite understood about me was my love of Latin when I was younger. I fell in love with it in high school and went on to study it for 4 more years in college, even earning a degree in classics. Dad could not wrap his head around it. He'd say, "Why would anyone study a language that you can't even speak?" It made absolutely no sense to him. But even when he didn't understand my choices, he always supported them. He trusted that I knew what I loved, even if it seemed completely impractical to him. One of the most unforgettable ways he showed that support was when I was 16, Dad bought me my dream car, a Volkswagen Cabriolet convertible. We drove all the way to Charlotte, about 2 hours from home, to pick it up. I remember watching him negotiate, completely in his element. He paid $6,000 for it, and I thought it was the most unbelievable gift in the world. And of course, the moment we pulled out of the lot, he said, "I should have paid $5,500. And I rolled my eyes like, "Get it together, oh my gosh." Always convinced he could have gotten just a little better deal. I drove that car all through high school and college. It gave me so much joy, and every time I think about it, I don't just see a car, I see about him making a dream come true. Another core memory was my dad having my back when I was registering for college classes. After freshman year, it was impossible to get into the courses I needed to stay on track for my major, and that did not sit well with him. He made one phone call, and from that point on, I was allowed to walk straight into a dean's office and have my schedule handled on the spot. I wasn't even supposed to tell anybody about my new VIP class registration status. But of course, I told my best friend Catherine, who's here today from North Carolina. Because some things are too good not to share. I had to tell her. Dad showed love through experiences and through generosity, and very often through food. He taught me how to love pepper jelly and cream cheese, bread pudding, eggs Benedict, a good Reuben, lima beans, and how to properly crack a lobster, while kindly tolerating the fact that I got sad every time they went into the steamer. We shared a love of mushrooms, olives, pickles, fig Newtons, apple crisp, blueberry crumb muffins, whoopie pies, oatmeal raisin cookies, and to not give up on the quest for the perfect chocolate cake donut. Food was how he nurtured us, how he celebrated, and how he showed love. But sorry, Dad, I'm still never gonna like shepherd's pie.
Music was one of our biggest connections, and our house was always filled with it. Neil Diamond, Barry Manilow, Rod Stewart, Barbra Streisand, Crystal Gale. Music playing while he cooked dinner, anytime he hosted a cocktail hour or threw a party. And he and I shared a special love for Kenny Rogers. He even took me to see him in concert. Our father-daughter dance at my wedding was Through the Years by Kenny. And what made it unforgettable was that Marsh surprised us by singing it at the reception. We didn't realize at the time that the song is actually more about couples than father and daughter, which made the whole thing absolutely hilarious and somehow even more perfect. Dad loved to travel, and he didn't always want to stay in the bougie places that Tina and I probably avoid. But sometimes he trusted us to make some of the decisions. We clearly get our controlling tendencies, honestly. One of the best trips he ever planned was a surprise 60th for Mom in Italy. He booked the most incredible villa in Tuscany, a beautiful property with a pool. It saved us during the gas shortage that was happening in the country at the time. And in classic Dad fashion, he and Marsh go into town to find gas and disappeared for hours. While the rest of us were back at home at the villa scrounging for cheese and crackers, they were enjoying what Marsh and Dad later described as the best fettuccine Alfredo they've ever had in their life. And it was at a gas station. They came back with gas, so we really couldn't complain, but we've never let them forget it. Some of our best memories with him are the lobster bakes every summer in Maine. After my grandfather passed the torch, Dad and his brother Graham took the reins, cooking the lobsters and making sure the tradition carried on. It wasn't just about the food, it was about family, laughter, and gathering everyone around the table year after year. And then without a big announcement, wait, of course he made a huge announcement. He loved to give good speeches. The torch was passed again to Joey, Big Elliot, Scott, John, the next generation stepping up. Dad loved watching that happen. He loved seeing the cousins take ownership, keep tradition alive, and make it their own. He loved a good deal. He loved having a yard sale. Haggling was an art form. He was notorious for buying knockoff brands, computers, AirPods, meat thermometers, TVs, any gizmo you can imagine. He loved Five Below. He loved Big Lots and Job Lots. He had so many as seen on TV gadgets, more than anyone I've ever known. Always convinced that this one might actually change your life. That same humor showed up every Christmas when Dad would buy himself gifts, wrap them, and label them to Jim from Santa. We'd look at each other, while he was opening something, none of us recognized the gift. It became a tradition we carried on this year, and his grandson, Elliot, opened a gift he gave himself on Christmas morning, so Dad would be proud. He had a generous spirit that he never bragged about. He loved adopting a child at Christmas. He had a tender spot for animal rescue groups and quietly looked out for people who needed a little extra help. And he didn't do it for recognition. He did it because it's who he was. Elliot. Els? The noodle? That's Grampy called you? You have his skin. That always tan glow. His amazing eyebrows. And his love of the golf game. He was so proud of you. His favorite thing was talking golf, watching you play, offering his opinions on your game during a match, much to my chagrin, and dreaming out loud about all the courses you might play one day. During his treatments, he said more than once, he just wanted to make sure he would be here to see you graduate college. He didn't get that moment. But the love and pride that he felt for you never wavered. Campbell. Yes, his first granddaughter, Cammy Lou. Juicy Lucy. He loved watching you ride horses, always looking to us afterwards saying, "That was good, right?" And we're like, "Yeah, she didn't fall off, so great." He admired your curiosity about the medical field and was endlessly proud of the woman that you're becoming. He couldn't wait to see where college would take you. He adored your sweet, generous heart. And he was always protective, and he never wanted anyone to take advantage of your kindness. Being your grandbaby, watching you grow, cheering you on, and loving you fiercely was one of the great privileges of his life. He took immense pride in all of his grandchildren, each one holding a special place in his heart. And right alongside that pride was the deep respect he had for my husband, Scott. Dad loved Scott from the time he was just 16. Before we were even married, Dad would tease him that he still had to get approved and voted in by the main family. After all, Scott was from North Carolina, and that clearly required an extra level of vetting. I'm happy to report that Scott was voted in by a landslide. Dad was so proud of the man that you became, of the way that you were your family business, and how you built a life with me and our family and showed up every day with integrity and heart. If I'm being honest, there were many times Dad was way more interested in Scott with what he was doing than what I was doing. Wanting updates on his latest building projects, his golf game, or what he was cooking next. And when he got sick in August with leukemia, our world shifted. In the midst of that, I became even more aware what a gift it had been to have Mom and Dad living nearby for so many years, especially once I had kids. And even in those difficult moments when he didn't always feel well, I treasured that time. We talked more, we slowed down, we said things we might not have said earlier. We were present in a way that now feels sacred. The day that he went into the hospital, his first leukemia treatment, we walked out of the blood cancer center to be admitted, and there in the parking lot was a food truck. His all-time favorite food truck, Cousin's Maine Lobster in North Carolina. He loved it so much that he actually tracked where it was. If Cousin's Lobster came within a 30-mile radius, he knew about it. On a day when we didn't know how to feel, it stopped us in our tracks, and it felt like a small, unexpected moment of comfort. One of those reminders that even on the hardest days, joy and love can still find a way to show up. Dad's greatest joy was his family, hearing Marsh sing, watching his grandchildren grow, loving Mom fiercely for 6 decades. He was so proud of Tina, earning her RN degree and finding love. He cherished his longtime friends and deeply nurtured his relationships with his 4 sisters. He taught us to laugh, to question things, to complain at a restaurant when it really mattered. To enjoy good food, good music, and each other. He may have been late to my birth, but he showed up for my life, again and again. And his legacy lives on in our stories, our traditions, our humor, and the love we carry forward. We miss you so much. And we will keep finding you in the music, in the food, in the laughter, and in the way we love each other. And no matter how old I get, I will always be your little Jody Lee.
I can do this. I just want to say thank you for everyone for being here today to celebrate my grandfather. Although today and every day is tough without him, I want to quickly highlight the light he brought to my life. Grandpa used to always tell me that he was always on my shoulder. Him on the right, maybe on the left. Meaning he was always watching over me, cheering me on. It started out as a joke that he was always watching me to make sure I didn't make bad decisions, but it meant more than that. I know now that he really is always with me and always with every one of us. Another thing I'll never forget about Grandpa that Marsh mentioned was his hugs, and if you know, you know. They were the kind that squeezed all the air out of you, but somehow filled your heart at the same time. Like my mom said, Grandpa had nicknames for the people he treasured, and mine was Candy Lou and Juicy Lucy, but don't ask how that came about. No matter how old I got, that name never changed. I could be doing something completely grown up, and there he'd be, "How's my kitty Lou?" reminding me that I'd always be his little granddaughter. A core memory of mine, and probably a personality trait he fully embraced, is that he always stole my french fries at dinner. Always. It didn't matter how many were on his plate, mine were better. And he would just grin, like he knew exactly what he was doing. He was also my biggest supporter. Big accomplishment or tiny victory, he was the first person to text me. Whether it be getting a good grade on a test, doing well or not well at a horse show, or going to a school dance, he always texted me to tell me how proud he was of me and how much he loved me. I'll never forget my last moment with him. As we said our goodbyes on Thanksgiving Day to head home for dinner, I held his hand and I told him I loved him, and he squeezed my hand. It was simple and quiet, but I knew at that moment that it was goodbye. And even though that hurts, I'm grateful, because it felt like one last "I'm on your shoulder" from him, and a silent sign that he's there with me all the time. I miss him so much every day, but more than anything, I'll carry him with me, just like he always said, on my shoulder, in my heart, in the choices I make, and the person I try to be.
My name is Pam Barry. I was a Hanson, and I'm married into the Barry family. And so there were 6 of us, and Jim was right above me. And I'm not going to be able to tell you all the positive stories that he just did. Because unfortunately, that's not the Jim Hanson we knew. Just remember, the one they're talking about has grown up. He was adored by everybody when he was little. I thought our grandmothers were going to shoot us if we said anything about him, if we did anything to him. When he was 18, for his birthday, I gave him a cigarette lighter. Well, my grandmother Hanson thought that was it. I'm going to lead him down this path. It's unhealthy. How could I do that to him? He was such a wonderful boy. And then, of course, there's the time. He was always a business person, so he had a paper route. And he asked me, to take it over, and that I'd start delivering the papers. Well, actually, I loved it because our house was always crowded, and when I was walking around delivering papers, I was alone. Well, that year at Christmas, I got a ton of Christmas tips. It was fabulous. Well, he decided that he could help himself to the Christmas tips because, in reality, it was his newspaper that he had originally owned. It was just a company rule that he owned it. He let me deliver the papers, but he was entitled a portion of the tips. We were talking, the girls, about how spoiled he was. But I was thinking the other day, that kind of runs counter to what the child psychiatrist and the psychologist would tell you, that someone that spoiled would grow up to be the kind, loving person that he was. It just doesn't balance usually. But he was a kind, loving person. He would show it sometimes through brilliant sarcasm. Although if you were on the receiving end, it wasn't quite so brilliant. And he never lost that touch. The sarcasm would be in a way that showed that he cared about you and that he knew you. And so it was tolerable. My mother adored him. Although and my father too, he was just spoiled. my father, but the summer after his first year at the University of Maine, he hadn't done well academically, and she was not a happy camper. So he had a job at the laundromat in Bath. And unfortunately, he also had eczema. But he would come home and his hands would be hurting, and she'd say, "Yep, that's just what's going to happen if you don't do well and graduate from college. You'll end up working in that laundromat the rest of your life. You'll be lucky if you have any hands left." So you now know that you have to straighten out and do well. But I was so sitting here thinking, there were 6 of us, and it was a fun family that we loved each other in our own, somewhat competitive, somewhat in a different way. Each one of us had different talents, but that love stayed strong, and the love for each other stayed very strong. And I know when my Uncle Graham was living in San Francisco, and he got very sick, and I called Jim to say that I was going out the next morning, and that wasn't a good outlook. Jim was there right away. He didn't hesitate to come out to San Francisco and help us. So again, there was something in him that was so giving and caring, and that you can't take that away from anyone. I think having a big family makes a lot of difference. And I really do. When I watched all of us march in here today, I thought, oh my God, we're gonna have to go through this again, and again. But there's something special that you get from a big family. And he knew it, and we all knew it. But he as much as he would tease and sometimes not be there when you needed him to be, he gave everything that he could to his family. And that's the kind of person. And to his friends. He loved his friends. And so I will miss him very much. But I do celebrate the kind of person that he became. So thank you. Do any of my sisters, girls, do you want to add anything? Thank you.
Hello. My name is Jim Hanbury. I'm from Connecticut. And Jim was my best friend. And I'm Irish. And you know what that means? I've already gone through 4 of these. So I'm going to give it my best. Jim has been a friend for over 45 years, and he was my best friend for 35. We both went to the University of Maine up in Orono, and we became really good friends when we went to work. When we were up at Orono, he was a senior and I was a freshman, so we really didn't chum around, and I knew who he was. A lot of people knew who he was. He was a pretty big man on campus, seriously. And but we really didn't get to know each other until later. So I went to work for Norton Company in Worcester, Massachusetts. I didn't know Jim was there. One day, I think I was in Seattle. That's where I was working. And I came back for something, I don't know what it was, to Worcester. And I was walking through the hallway, and I happened to look. I was in the purchasing department. I looked to the right and I went, God, I think I know that guy. And I backpedaled and I looked in, I saw his name on the desk, and I said, I know that guy. So I walked in, and he I really had to introduce myself. He kind of knew who I was, but he didn't. And so we did that, and we talked, and we went and we had lunch up in the cafeteria. We both worked for this company for 37 years, both of us, which is a little unusual today. We both had similar career paths in that we were in sales and marketing, but mostly sales. And we were sales managers. Back in the late 80s, I think, or maybe early 90s, we had a boss who was Italian, and he had this idea for a regional sales contest for a new product. And he gave us, there were 5 district managers, he gave us all mafioso names. And Jim's name was Jim the Hammer Hanson. That was his name. Hanson, Hammer, that's what we all called him. We were in charge of having our salespeople get orders for this new product and not taking no for an answer. We were not supposed to take no for an answer, so that's why he was the Hammer. And after the contest was over, the name stuck. He was always, after that, Hammer to me, and I was Hens to him. That was my name. We would call each other on the phone, and he would say, Hens, Hammer. I'd say, Hammer, Hens. And we'd talk. It was just the way it was, and it has been that way ever since. Later on, Jim became a national sales manager. He was the boss. And I was a regional manager. He was my direct boss. And that's not easy, having a friend of yours reporting to you when you're the boss. He did a great job. I mean, he was fair to everybody. If he didn't like what I was doing, he'd tell me. He'd say, Hens, I want to talk to you. He treated everybody the same, and there was never a problem. We did a lot of entertaining back then. Surprised? Surprised why we had a great career in sales? No surprise there, as Jim would say. No surprise there. And if you were good at entertaining, back in those days, you were probably had a good sales career. He was the master at entertaining. He loved it. He loved it. I didn't think it was too bad myself. But he was great. I mean, dinners for distributors, dinners for customers. As Marsh said, he had when he was in a room and he spoke, almost everybody could hear him, and everybody wanted to know what he said. Sporting events, we did a lot of that. Golf, distributor presentations, recognition awards. He was a statesman. He was fantastic. I was at Jim's retirement party, and he at mine a couple years later. I retired with 2 other guys, and after the retirement party, which was in a beautiful hall at the company called Norton Hall, and it had murals all around the room of what the company did from its inception. It had in the front of the hall, it had a family tree that went back to when the company started in 1885. It was a beautiful place. So that's where they had his retirement party in mind. After the retirement party, the 2 other guys and Jim, so there were 4 of us, we decided we would go to the sole proprietor downtown in Worcester, a restaurant where we had been many times, even entertaining. And at that, when we had finished having fun. We decided, because the other guys were from other parts of the country, we didn't want it to end there. We didn't want this to be the last time we'd see each other. So we decided that we would get together once a year at least, someplace, and play golf, because we all play golf. There were, at that time, there were 4 of us. One of the guys, we were searching for a name for us, for our group. And one of the guys' son also worked for Norton Company, and he was out in California. And he was more creative than the rest of us, than us. So he said that his father told him that, you know, when we retired, we had formed this group and we had vowed to get together. And so his son said, "Well, who were the guys, Phil?" And he said, he named us. And his son said, "Oh my God, they're legends." And we went, bingo. So that became our name. And we decided we needed someone to lead the group. There was no doubt about it. So Jim took on the job, as he always took on, you know, things that he needed to do, with vim and vigor, and decided that we needed to have shirts and hats and an emblem on them, you know. So the emblem, and he ordered a whole bunch of shirts, and the group grew over the years, and this is 20 years. The group grew to 12, which just happened to be 3 foursomes. It's perfect. So the emblem that he came up with was a set of cross golf clubs, irons, in the middle, a martini glass, tilted just a little bit with 2 olives in it. And underneath it said, "Legends." We were a pretty tight group, there's no question. Here we go. Just getting ready. Being best friends, we did a lot of travel. Someone said my father loved to travel. Well, he did. And we probably went to Florida together, Joe and Jim and Digger and I don't know, 10 times. You know, we'd usually go mid-February. We would go when we were younger, we would go for a month. As we get older, 2 weeks was fine, you know. But he was like a travel agent. He would call and say, "Hey, Hens, I got this beautiful house, so-and-so, you know, BBRO or BROB or whatever it is." And so he would send me, you know, maybe 3 options for houses in Florida. And then we'd call and talk about it. Usually on a Sunday night, we'd call and talk all the time. He would call, and I would hear click, 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 the ice in the glass. Sunday, right around 5 o'clock is when we talk. The first trip that we really took was to Hershey, Pennsylvania. Remember that? Dina, you remember that? We had a sales meeting over in New York, Albany, or I think it was Albany, and you could bring the family. So I had Rita and my 2 children, and Jim had Joan and his 3 children. And the children, they didn't know each other, they had never met. So I think we were there maybe 3 days. And during the day, they had things that the kids could do, and they got to be friendly. So at the end of it, we headed for Hershey, Pennsylvania. And I mean, I could remember I had a 1979 station wagon, and Marsh decided to come with Jay and us, and my daughter Amy went with the girls. And so we're driving down there, and I had the radio on, and I know I didn't have a speaker in the back. I mean, this is in 1979, and we could hear his voice singing the songs. Couldn't believe it. I'm looking at Rita, and finally I looked around, and it's Marsh, and he was, I don't know, 11 or 12 at the time. Yeah, my God, and little did we know, 2 years later we'd be in Albany watching you and as Oliver, right? Yes. So we really became close, the families back, it started back then. And Tina, I know you'll remember that trip, and I won't tell anybody why. But if you want to know, ask Tina later on, and she'll tell you. Right, Tina? Yeah. Another time we went to Ireland, and again Jim took charge of all taking care of everything. He rented a car. So we get into Shannon. We go to the car place. We had lots of luggage, and the car was like a mini car. It was so small I couldn't believe it. It was a hatchback. So we put the luggage in there. It was unbelievable. It was so packed, couldn't see through the mirror out the back or anything. And I said to Jim, you know what? I said, we look like the Clampers, Beverly Hill Clampers, but we're going to Ireland, not the Beverly Hills. But after that, I mean, we went to Paris. Well, we flew over to Paris and visited a friend there. Many times in Florida, and many summers up at Highland Lake. So much fun at Pam's place. It was just wonderful. And every adventure generated another story and future laughs for enjoyment. A couple that come to mind. Not too many years ago, maybe 2, 3 at the most, 2 I think. We drove down to Florida. So we went to Jim and Jones, and then we followed them. We went down to Georgia the next day, and then Jim and he made all the arrangements. He had, where we were staying. So he was proud of this one. He said, "Oh, you know what?" He said, "I have a reservation at the Villages in Florida. So we'll stay there, and then the next night we'll go down to our place." Great. So we're following him, and the GPS, and we were about 20 miles from the Villages, and we take a left and a right. I'd say to Rita, "God, this doesn't look like any place like the Villages. We had been there before." And we take one final left, and we're in a trailer park. And so we're looking at the numbers on the mailbox, and he had the number, and we pull up to this white trailer that's facing a sand pit. And Jim said, "This can't be it." And I said, "Jim, I think it is." He said, "It's impossible." And he got out. And he goes up and he tries to look in the windows. He was so mad. I mean, he was absolutely humiliated. So we finally got a motel room for the night. That was amazing. One other, and then I'll kind of try to end it. But we were in Florida. We had our little dog, and Jim had Buddy, and we used to walk the dogs maybe twice a day. So at the end of the road, and then you take a right, there was this place. It just had a big neon sign. It said Martinis. Jim goes, "Hey, Hanson, we gotta hit this place." So I said, "You're right, Jimmy." And so we went back. Maybe 3 days later, we got in the car. We just drove down there. It was maybe 4:30, and we walked in. The place was really nice. We sat at the bar. And Jim's waiting, he's waiting for someone, waiting. He's, "Hanson, what's going on? There's no one." "Oh yeah, finally a guy comes out." And Jim said, he said, "Can I help you?" Jim said, "Yes, I'll have a Kettle One martini, dry, straight up, with 2 olives." And the guy looks at him and says, "Sir," he says, "there's no martinis here. This is a wine bar." And Jim went, "What? How can it be a wine bar? The sign says martinis." The guy said, "That's the owner." He's an Italian guy. He was mad, let me tell you. So, you know, when Joanna asked me to speak, here we go. I started to think, why is Jim my best friend? And I thought, you know what? It's hard to tell. I said, it's just kind of natural. We don't have to work at this relationship. It's special. We had similar interests. Work. I mean, Jim loved work. I loved work. We used to talk about it all the time. The Red Sox, the Patriots, golf, Duke, UConn, rivalry. And we could share things that we probably wouldn't share with other friends. We could talk about things, family things, you know, we down in Florida, you know, we'd be out by the pool, you know, in the evening, and some of the things that, you know, Jim would tell me is how proud he was, I'm telling you, of you guys. How proud he was of you, Marsh. Tina, you know, that you finally found yourself in Boston, you got your nursing degree. And Joanna, he was very proud of you, very proud. And he would, and we would sit there, and this is how proud, we would listen to a tape that you made, you know? No, just the Our Father and other songs, it was just, and we would just, I loved it, I loved it. The relationship, our relationship was, I called it balanced, meaning that we both showed up for each other in big moments. Weddings, birthdays, yes, funerals. This is my 4th time here for a funeral. To Jim's father, his mother, his brother Graham, and now my best friend. You know, our relationship was consistent over time. Months could pass, and the connection never faded. You know, we both loved, we loved jokes. He had a fantastic sense of humor. I like humor. And we just had a special chemistry. It's hard to explain, you know. I could talk to Jim for 20 to 30 minutes on the phone. Can you imagine a guy speaking to another guy on the phone for 20 to 30 minutes? Normally you call and you say, "Yeah, you're going to be there? Okay, yeah, me too, I'll see you there." That's it. Not us. We could talk especially Sunday nights. As time went on, we considered each other family. We really did. And Jim was like the brother that I never had. I never had a brother. In fact, we might have been closer than some brothers. A lot of times siblings don't get along. But we never had that problem. I'm going to miss him to the end of my days. So Emma, wherever you are today, rest in peace, brother. I love you, man.
Well, we got 25 minutes until we can go together, right? So the good thing is I have a lot of material. The couple great things about, or a couple bad things about speaking last is, number one, everyone has already said what I was going to say. And number two, I'm standing between everyone and having their first drink, which I know where Uncle Jim's heart would really be. But my name's Elliot Barry. I was, my mom is Pam Barry, and I was Jim's nephew. You know, and I had a special relationship with Uncle Jim because I graduated from business school in one of probably the worst job markets in the early 2000s, and he was helpful in getting me a job at Norton Company, where I got a chance to meet the great Hens and a lot of the other legends. Sadly, I didn't make it to legendary status there. I only lasted about 2 years, but I was able to be in attendance for Uncle Jim's retirement party. You know, it was just a blessing to be able to see him not only as an uncle and a father in our family, but in a work setting where he pretty much was the exact same person. And he created long-lasting and meaningful relationships, and that explains so much about why he was successful and why he was such an incredible father, uncle, and also friend and business person. I thought I'd share a couple, or one quick story, because everyone's talked about he loved a good nickname. You know, and I'm the original L's, not the most important, right? And he also gave me a fair amount of needling about my hair, or lack thereof. My waistline maybe a little bit, got a little bit larger. That reminded me of that too, although I could give that back to him as well. But one thing I had the great opportunity when I did work there was I was able to go on a couple trips because we were supporting the sales and marketing team with him, and saw his love for entertaining, which I think was really driven by the fact that he wasn't picking up the bill. But we were down at someplace probably in, who knows, North Carolina somewhere, at some sales meeting, and we're having dinner one night, and it's all a bunch of Jim and a lot of other sales people from Norton, myself as the kind of the goober finance guy, and everyone's going around ordering their drinks, and they're getting, you know, gin and tonic, martini, and for some reason, I looked at the menu and I saw on the menu that they had hurricanes. I was like, oh, all right, I'll take a hurricane. Oh, that was a huge mistake. Out comes this pink drink with flowers coming out of it and everything. The second it hit the table, someone goes, hey, hurricane, how's that over there? And I immediately earned that nickname, Hurricane. And then the next morning, of course, we're in the actual meeting. I think I had to make a presentation about something. And so up I go to make my presentation. And I think Jim was introducing me. He's like, and here comes Elliot Hurricane Barry. You know, and I never knew, when I first started working there, I don't think I ever knew his nickname was Hammer. But he was Hammer there, and I will never forget the incredible opportunity it was to be able to work with him and see him really in action, but and make the one really huge takeaway I'm going to take from that time and what Jim showed me is to make meaningful connections with people. Be yourself, but make sure that they understand that you're excited to see them, you're excited to talk to them. Make sure they know that you can make them feel special, even if they're not. Right? It was just an incredible experience, and something I'll never forget. I'm so thankful I had that opportunity for. So, thank you, and Hammer, Uncle Jim. We're going to enjoy a drink for you today. Thank you. Okay.
You know, just listening to all of you, I just want to say that I also don't want to stand in the way of you getting your first drink, so I'm going to skip the reading. But before I do that, I just want to say thank you to all of you for what you've shared. You have shared from the very depths of your heart, but you've also been so funny You talked about, when we were talking about what this was supposed to be, and you said it's supposed to be a tribute and a roast, and man, you roasted him. So I am just so grateful. I'm just so grateful for all of that. And Jim, I don't know, where did you go? I want to talk to you. I tell very few people this, okay? I'm from Worcester. My uncle and godfather worked his entire career at Norton's in the sales department, retired in the early 80s. And my dad worked next door at Heels in the sales department into the 80s. So we ought to have a little chat. It is a very small world, and if you don't know this, especially if you're from Maine, you never, ever say anything bad about anybody because they're bound to be either related or your parents' best friend. So we're going to skip anything else and go right to In the Garden. I want you to stand up and move, and I want you to sing out. If you're going to have to lead us, because you've got the voice to lead us in the garden. Stand up if you'd like to. Holy One, as we've heard so many poignant reflections about who Jim has been, we're reminded that we are all created to live together in community, helping and sharing and caring for each other, finding joy in each other and in the world around us, and finding ways to help everyone around us thrive and live our best lives possible. And today our hearts are breaking as we remember one who has done just that. And so even as we celebrate Jim's life, all he's been, all he's done, we carry the heaviness and the rawness of his passing. Yet even in our sadness, we have such gratitude for the time he's been with us, for all he's shared with us and taught us on his journey. We're grateful for his honesty and integrity and work ethic. We're grateful for his sense of humor and kindness and generosity of resources, as well as time and spirit and energy. And mostly we're grateful for his unwavering love and care for his family and his friends and his colleagues and everyone whom he encountered. We thank you for our time together and all that we've been to each other on our journeys. And so on both the days when our hearts sing with memories of who he's been, and on the days when we miss him more than our hearts can bear, remind us of all he's been, and remind us that his spirit and his love will always and forever live in us. We know that when he breathed his last in this kingdom, that you knew him so well, that you knew exactly what he needed. And so you asked his father and his mother and his big brother to join you and welcome him. We offer these words now with both sadness as well as hope, remembering that all life is sacred. It's sacred in its being born, it's sacred in its being lived, and it's even sacred in its dying. And so we offer these words that many of us learned long ago. And friends, some of you might want to join me in these words, and if you do, join me in the words that you know best. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. So my final words to you, both benediction and blessing, are words from one of my favorite theologians. And as you know, I read a lot of theology, and I know that that sounds wicked boring, but it's what I do. And one of my favorite theologians is that tubby little cubby from England whose name is Winnie the Pooh. And Winnie said this: if ever there is a time when we're not together, there's something that you must always remember. You're braver than you believe, you're smarter than you think, and you're stronger than you seem. But the most important thing is this: if ever we're apart,